Greetings, dear friends! I present to your attention the most common malfunctions and breakdowns that occur on the Fiat 500. The suspension of these small cars is quite strong. It is a pity that the standard ball joint is not replaceable, like the silent blocks, but at least they are in almost original performance from Magneti Morelli, and the price of the assembled levers is very sparing, about 5 to 7,000 rubles a piece. The rear source even on Russian roads is 50 to 80,000 kilometers. The rear silent block is usually the first to fail, the front one is noticeably more reliable, and the ball is conventionally eternal. On cars with 200 plus mileage, there are still original ones. Everything would be fine, but the installation of an almost original silent block for 400 rubles will in any case require work to remove the bumper, locker and, on turbocharged cars, also intercoolers. In total, there will be 10 to 15,000 works. Against this background, the price of a penny spare part is lost, and many owners with runs of 50 to 100,000 will prefer to immediately change all the silencers or even the levers assembled. The pillar supports are rather weak, but the main complaints are heard from the owners of electric 500s and American cars with automatic transmission. There the load is higher. The structure of the supports was even slightly strengthened, but not enough. All the same, the supports do not move much. The matter is complicated by the fact that the Americans do not have supports from above. They are suitable only for European versions. The rear suspension is pretty straightforward. It is necessary to change the shock absorbers and their bushings in the time. The silent blocks of the beams are strong. If they did not screw up during replacement and the springs did not sag, then almost certainly there are still relatives. The springs on ordinary 500s are quite soft and weak. There are variants with broken off from corrosion with runs over 100,000. On Abarths, the springs are harder, and breakages are rarer. But there the suspension itself usually runs significantly less, and rims with hubs are already consumable, while on conventional versions of the hubs, although rather weak, usually go above 150, and it is difficult to crumple rims on standard rubber. The steering here is with an electric booster, and the simplest one with a motor on the steering column and with a worm gear. The EUR is strong enough. For high mileage, it is recommended to renew the lubricant inside, especially in cold regions. When it loses its properties, it is felt that the effort becomes more wetted due to friction in the gearbox. Sometimes a problem typical for Fiats appears with the EUR torque and steering angle sensor. This nuisance is typical for 150 plus runs and rarely appears earlier. But if the steering wheel vibrates in a turn, like the vibration motor of a phone, or the effort just jumps, then this is a big expense. The sensor can be searched, the remanufactured ones are sold for about 50 euros, the new Chinese cost 120, but in any case there is a risk of buying an incompatible one. And the assembly and disassembly of the EUR also costs a little. The new EUR costs more than 1000 euros, which is unacceptable for most car owners. The only substitute produced by General Ricambi SPA is 2 times cheaper, but what about the quality is not clear. Steering tips and rods are weak. They need to be changed every 40 to 60,000 even in the average city mode. If you drive a lot on the ground, then more often. If on exceptionally good roads and use the steering wheel carefully, then less often. The rake itself is pretty reliable too. Only the side bushings are brought in, but replacing them with fluoroplastic ones is now an inexpensive operation and mastered by most services. Since the cars are front-wheel drive and very compact, there are no particular difficulties in the design. Everything is done with a good margin of safety. There is only one problem. Finding a car with a normal manual gearbox or a normal automatic is not so easy. Most likely you will have to come to terms with the fact that there is a robot on the car. Mechanics is represented by boxes of the C510, C514 and C514R series. These are very compact and rather old units. The youngest in the series, the 514th box, was installed with almost all atmospheric engines with torque of up to 150 Nm. It is a simple 2-shaft transmission, usually 5-speed, but there is also a 6-speed option. The shift drive is cable operated, with a not very successful rocker arm, and besides it is prone to soaring during downtime. Of the bright cons of the C514 are extremely unsuccessful bearings. Nominally, all versions until 2012 relied on ball bearings with a plastic cage. Only the most powerful motors, for this box it is 1.4, were roller or ball motors with metal cage at the front or lower end of the shafts. The picture is complemented by a rather weak differential and tapered differential bearings with limited resource, about 150,000 km, before backlash appears. As a result, the owling of the gearbox and the characteristic diesel engine are not uncommon. It is often possible to have time to replace a set of bearings with roller bearings, since they are on sale. But it is not very cheap and preventive measures are unpopular. Synchronizers are also far from ideal, but they do not hold up to 150, but rather 200,000 or more. Oil leaks, unfortunately, happen on a regular basis, and any decrease in the level greatly damages the lubrication of the differential and leads to sticking of the satellite axles. These do not immediately run away, but the increased noise in fast turns can be caused by their damage. C514R, as you might guess, is a reinforced version of the normal, strictly for 16-valve 1.4 engines. It has a slightly different differential and almost certainly reinforced bearings at the front end of the shafts. Otherwise, everything is the same. The same box serves as the main one for the seal speed robots. MCP S510.5 is arranged in a completely different way. Such a box is still quite compact, but officially holds 210 Nm of torque, but in fact withstands 300 plus, which is enough even for seriously forced abarth, on which it is mainly found. However, the 510 comes across with both 1.4 and 0.9 engines of late releases. Of course, it is more reliable than the 514th, especially when it comes to working with a simple aspirated. It is a pity that at the rear end of the shaft there are bearings with an ill-fated plastic cage, which will inevitably fall apart over time or under high loads. The C510.5 differential copes with relatively weak engines, but it does not tolerate with the torque from forced up to 180 to 190 engine forces. However, there are many whales for this box that eliminate this problem, because the C510 is often found on the Alfa Romeo 156 with 1.8 to 2.0 engines and is very popular in tuning. What is convenient, instead of the C514, such a box is almost a bolt one, and it costs a used on the same, if not less. Clutch and flywheels on all versions do not cause unnecessary trouble. The only disadvantages are the resource. On cars with 1.2 motors it is often less than 60,000, which is quite a bit by modern standards. If you're unlucky, you'll have a Fiat 500 with automatic transmission, more precisely with a robot. It is almost like a racing Graziano here, but from Magneti Marelli, and is called Saily Speed CAC 328 or Dual Logic, depending on the market. Lucky only the owners of rare American cars in our area. There's a full-fledged automatic Aisin F21 to 250, the younger version of the well-known TF80SC. At the heart of the robots, as mentioned above, are the mechanics of the C514R series for 200mm clutch on machines with atmospheric engines 1.2 to 1.4 and C510.5 from Abarth. The clutch is hydraulic and so is the gear shift. Synchronizers are reinforced compared to manual gearboxes. The latest version of the robot turned out to be quite reliable and even quite convenient in everyday use. But such a box cannot be compared with robots with two clutches or a classic automatic in terms of ease of use. Not only is the box very simple, if not to say primitive, it is arranged, but also the oil was chosen poorly. To tell a car CS speed simply does not work at sub-zero temperatures. If the oil is old, then already at zero it thickens so the pump can malfunction. Nothing prevents the use of oils with the best low temperature characteristics, but the experiments are carried out only by the inhabitants of Siberia, where Tutela freezes in winter so that the robot works only after an hour warming up. The rest simply change their Italian oil regularly and try to drive less in winter. For all the primitiveness of a robot with one clutch, such boxes have enough weak points and potential breakdowns. The accumulator is aging a little, and if you do not change it in time, you can get the oil pump breakdown. The price of a new one is 6 to 9,000 rubles. A restored one is even less, and if the oil pump works too often, then it is better to conduct a test and replace it if necessary. The clutch lasts long enough if the machine is operated in flat terrain and everything is working properly. But this is not always the case, and many owners do not understand the specifics of operating the robot on such a weak engine, allowing a mode with long starts in which the clutch wears out faster. The gearbox hydraulics are powerful enough, which seems to be good, but the clutch release, fork and gear shift mechanism, and at the same time the synchronizers wear out very noticeably during urban use. On the turbocharged 1.4, the owner simply used the gearbox as a semi-automatic, throwing off the gas and manually changing gears to reduce shock loads and avoid the fastest possible shifts under traction. If you are lucky, you will not know how to change the cups in the box, how to drill out the drainage, where the oil goes, where to watch the leaks, and why the clutch valve is suitable from Cherry QQ. But I will still briefly describe the procedure if the inscription "check the box" lights up on the dashboard. This is a very likely scenario for those who have a car mileage of more than 50,000 kilometers, and it can be repeated once or twice a year, if you do not attend to the repair or everything and immediately in advance. First, check the fluid level in the working tank of the box. If you see a leak from under the speed select sensor, then the cups are leaking. It is useless to change the sensor gasket. If all is well with the oil level, measure the pump interval. With the engine running, notice by ear how much time elapses between operations. 2 minutes or more is ideal. More than a minute is a good result. There is no pressure leak in the box and the pump is fine, but the problem is somewhere else. Less than 30 seconds. It is only worth going to the service. You have a problem with pressure, and the check is almost certainly because of this. If the pump works every 10 seconds or runs constantly, then if you do not want to destroy it, take the car to the service on a tow truck, and the pump may not work at all. There are also quite a few reasons, from the trivial wear of brushes or a wedge to problems with wiring or a blown fuse. A number of troubles can be easily eliminated, but it may be necessary to change the pump assembly. There are usually 3 reasons for pressure leaks due to which the pump constantly pumps up. The first is the wear of the accumulator. The second is the wear of the clutch valve, from 50 euros in China to 400 in our stock. The latter problem is noticeable by the increased fluid flow into the tank through the return pipe. The tank must be cleaned to see this. Well, the third option, the most unpleasant, is the wear of the internal cuffs of the hydraulic unit on the gear shift and clutch pistons. Cuffs cost a penny, but not everyone can sort out the valve body itself. An error due to the calibration of the clutch can be associated with both its wear and the wear of the clutch rod with runs of 50,000+ kilometers. The rod is successfully welded in the surface up to standard 75 mm. A reinforcing crown is placed on it. Another typical robot problem arises when the gear selection lock mechanism. If there is a minimum of emulsion from condensate in the channel, it freezes. The blocking ring freezes to the wall. However, on just old oil, the ring already freezes and causes errors. In addition to all of the above, there is a wide selection of wiring failures. It is southern, rather fragile, with leaking connectors, and she also does not like oil. In general, the list of checks is quite voluminous. Repairs are expensive and used boxes assembled, as in the Japanese, are not found here. Finally, a little about a rich life. If you just want to put a new one, then the valve body will cost 200, 2,700 euros. The performer unit 1,000. The valve block 1,300. And a little more for wiring and a tank with tubes and a clutch, a plug and a hydraulic accumulator. The assembled box costs under 5,000. There is no point in talking about the eyes in hydraulic automation. Even with the American 1.4T 135 HP. It handles playfully, not to mention the naturally aspirated version with 101 HP. True, the automatic transmission is sensitive to the purity of the oil, and with high mileage, you need to monitor this, because the wear of the blocking linings of the gas turbine engine leads to oil contamination and many unpleasant consequences for both the valve body and the mechanical part of the box. The design as a whole is not infallible, does not like overheating and two active drivers. If these conditions are not observed, breakdowns are possible, similar to that of the Volkswagen TF60 SC. I think it's enough to look at the car to realize that there is much room under the hood. The turbo engines even had to fit a different front fascia and bumper to accommodate the new radiators and intercoolers. In combination with traditionally not the best quality rubber products and hydraulics of robots on most machines, all this makes maintenance not entirely trivial. It is better not to go at random. You need to know what is removed and from where, checked and unscrewed, and which connections are better not to touch, so as not to buy new pipes and seals later. However, cars with atmospheric engines and manual gearboxes do not experience any particular problems, especially 812 ones, with a very complex cylinder head and an air filter in the engine cover. Most of the machines are equipped with motors of the FIRE series. These are 812 1.2 and 1612 1.4, and even Abarth turbo engines. It's not particularly interesting to talk about simple versions. These are ordinary workhorses, strong and simple, very reliable and quite resourceful on light machines. During highway operation, the motors eat up a little oil, since the revolutions are too large already at 100 km per hour, and on 16-valve motors, the oil separator is also poorly arranged, but this trouble is well helped by the sports oil washer on the branch pipe. Another disadvantage is that the original timing belt does not run more than 60,000. The catalysts do not last long. The throttles and lambdas are not very successful. With runs up to 150 they can already start to fool. But the motors are simple. 812 ones do not bend the valves when the timing belt breaks. The components are inexpensive. The design has been leaked over many years of production. On the Abarths and American 500s there are motors of the same FIRE series, but under the Multi-Air brand. It is based on the old block of cylinders of engines 1.4, but the cylinder head is completely new. The chances of meeting them in Russia are minimal, but the idea itself is so interesting that it is worth telling. Moreover, the same technology is used on 0.9 motors, which are still on sale. The exhaust camshaft on motors is completely normal and controls the exhaust valves. But, in addition to the valve control cams, it has the multi-air hydraulic cylinder cams. Their profile is very full and provides a large amount of energy to operate the valve. The cam creates pressure in a large hydraulic cylinder that communicates with the valve actuator hydraulic cylinder to open it. More precisely, two valves with separate hydraulic cylinders. So far, nothing new. This is how any hydraulic compensator in the motor works. But the Italians made a pump hydraulic cylinder with a large volume that the valve actuator cylinder. And between them, an electro valve was placed, which allows you to regulate the volume of oil supplied to the valve drive, and therefore to regulate the height of its rise. It remains to add a system that allows for each working stroke to set the optimal time and duration of the opening of the solenoid valve, and the Italians received a timing in which the height and speed of the valve opening can be electronically controlled. While the cam on the camshaft is pumping oil, you can even open and close the valve several times. Hold it with a small opening angle or with a maximum one. Open it sooner or later. This is not yet complete freedom, but there is a very large selection of options that allows you to increase power if desired or ensure maximum efficiency. As with BMW's VANOS systems, there is no need for a throttle valve. Pumping losses are minimized, but also the opening speed of the valve is decoupled from its stroke. The hydraulics not only limit the maximum lift height, but also define a completely new, arbitrary opening curve within the maximum cam curve. In theory, all this makes it possible to make an atmospheric engine with an almost ideal VS6, with exemplary feeling at any speed. Vary the degree of twisting of the mixture in the cylinder according to revolutions, easily adjust all resonance phenomena at the inlets, and much more. And when combined with turbocharging and direct injection, it offers near-ideal boost and fuel efficiency while meeting even stringent emission standards. And the design, moreover, is not too confused. In fact, there is only one drawback: high losses for pumping oil, and at low speeds they do not decrease at all, since the supply from the pump hydraulic cylinder is constant here. The motor turned out not to say that it was a failure, but from being as hardy as ordinary brothers in the FIRE family. At least not the first time. It was possible to select the spring rate for the pump cylinder, so that over time the springs sagged and at high revs the rocker jumped off, damaging the shaft and stem. The oil is pushed through the grooves in the multi-air unit lid and gnawed out channels in the aluminum plate. Yes, and the valve itself after 50,000 km is already malfunctioning. The result is a decrease in power and increase in noise. The service life largely depends on the purity of the oil, which in turn depends on the filter used, the operation of the bypass valve, the cold load, and the condition of the internal filter of the multi-air unit, which, by the way, usually changes extremely confusedly. Due to the fact that the damage is usually complex, simple repair of faulty components may not help, and it is better to replace the unit with a new one. Better yet, change the engine oil more often. Do not even bring it up to 250 hours, that is about 7,000 kilometers, and use only a proprietary oil filter. With some luck for 150k runs, the system works well. In Russia, a Fiat 500 with this system is more likely to collide by buying a car with a 0.9-liter engine with two twin air cylinders. This motor nominally belongs to the same series as motors 1.4 and 1.2, but in fact, it has nothing to do with them at all. There is a completely new cylinder block, a different dimension of the piston group, two cylinders, a timing chain drive, and there is a balance shaft in the block. But the second generation multi-air unit is noticeably more reliable than on 1.4 engines, and it is simpler in design, and the thrust of the supercharged engine is very good. It gives out its 140 Nm after 2000 revolutions. The only pity is that the torque is very small and uneven, so that at start the engine has to be significantly tightened. What about reliability is not yet clear, but there are no massive problems with runs up to hundreds of thousands. Turbo diesel 1.3 JTD is more familiar to us from Opel models. Corsa and Astra were supplied with it. The engine is not the best in terms of reliability, but it is very economical and high torque. On this, information about the problems of the Fiat 500 is exhausted. If you know more or do not agree with what you heard, I'm waiting for you in the comments.